The first moon landing almost became a story about missing the target. In July 1969, the lunar module Eagle was dropping toward the Sea of Tranquility. From Earth, the landing zone had looked smooth and safe. Up close, it was a real landscape. Craters, rocks, shadows, and one dangerous area near West Crater. Neil Armstrong saw the problem and began steering manually, searching for a safer place to set down. But this moment had begun 8 years earlier. On May 25, 1961, President John F. Kennedy gave the United States a deadline that sounded almost impossible: land a human on the moon and return him safely to Earth before the decade was over. Apollo 11 was the mission that finally carried that promise into space. On July 16, 1969, more than 1 million people gathered around Cape Kennedy to watch the Saturn V rocket rise from the launch pad. Inside were 3 men with very different jobs. Neil Armstrong commanded the mission. Buzz Aldrin would help fly Eagle to the surface. Michael Collins would stay in the command module Columbia, orbiting the moon alone. History often remembers the first footprint, but Apollo 11 depended on all 3 men. While Armstrong and Aldrin descended, Collins circled above them. He would never walk on the moon. He would not appear in the famous surface photographs, but if Columbia was not waiting when Eagle came back up, there would be no way home. Below him, the landing was getting tense. Eagle had drifted beyond its planned touchdown point. Armstrong guided it past the hazardous terrain and brought it down about 4 miles from where it had been expected to land. Then the message came back to Earth. The Eagle had landed. Hours later, an estimated 650 million people watched on television as Armstrong stepped onto the lunar surface. Aldrin followed about 20 minutes later. Their moonwalk lasted only a little more than 2.5 hours, but every action carried weight. They set up a TV camera, took photographs, collected lunar samples, and placed experiments in the gray dust, including a solar wind experiment, a seismic experiment, and a laser reflector. Apollo 11 was a symbol, but it was not only a symbol. The astronauts also left memorial medallions for the Apollo 1 crew and 2 Soviet cosmonauts, along with a small disc carrying goodwill messages from 73 countries. Back on Earth, the triumph was complicated. Many celebrated, but civil rights leaders had also protested at Kennedy Space Center, arguing that a nation reaching for the moon still had poverty and racial inequality at home. On July 24, 1969, Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins splashed down safely in the Pacific Ocean. Then, as a precaution, they spent about 3 weeks in quarantine. So the first moon landing did not end with the astronauts immediately stepping into a cheering crowd. It ended with them behind glass, back on Earth, carrying proof that humans had touched another world and returned. Did you spot the hidden tiny UFO? Tell me in the comments where you saw it. Subscribe for more tiny details hidden inside big stories. And thanks for watching.